It's a bit grainy, but it was the start of a billion-dollar industry. The first ever Hindi feature was made 100 years ago, before sound and, believe it or not, before song and dance. This is Brand New, a movie full of superstars released to tie in with the Bollywood century. In the years between, business has ballooned. Bollywood makes more than 1,000 films every year. That's twice as many as Hollywood. Those films sell 3.6 billion cinema tickets, and last year the industry made a box office profit of £2.7 billion. Song and dance has been the unique part of the formula since this, Niche Nagar from back in the 40s. More recently, Hollywood started borrowing a few of those ideas. The man behind Moulin Rouge held up Hindi cinema as an influence.
Tell me you don't love me! Are you ready? Yes.
And Slumdog Millionaire, a film about India with song and dance, took home lots of America's Oscars.
Apna Bombay talkies.
Bombay, Bombay talkies.
So it might be celebrating turning 100, but there's no sign of Bollywood slowing down. Dominic Reynolds, 5 News.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Gurinder Chadha, who famously directed Bend It Like Beckham and Bride and Prejudice. I began by asking her what made Bollywood films so popular.
I think what makes Bollywood cinema so appealing is that it's such a distinct genre, and it has a massive global fan base that come to see the stars, the singing, the dancing, and now increasingly are expecting better storytelling and more production values, and Bollywood is delivering on that.
And it's becoming increasingly popular in Britain, isn't it? Why is that, do you think?
We're finding a lot of young British Asians going to see these films, and I think it's a way for them to celebrate their own language, their own culture, and it's a nice thing to do with the family, you know. So it's very much part of the sort of social, cultural fabric of being a British Asian these days, you know, to go and see a Hindi film.
They deal with less traditional, conservative viewpoints nowadays. They've certainly kind of broadened their appeal in terms of what they're dealing with, their subject matters.
Yes, when I was growing up, the idea of having a kiss in a Hindi film was completely taboo, but now it's quite commonplace. And I think you've still got quite a sort of conservative, traditional thread running through these films, but at the same time you have kind of very Western sort of dressed stars in sort of the latest sort of designer gear, you know, dressing and singing and dancing in a sort of quite a Western Indian way. So they're quite a melange culturally now, I think, and part of that is to appeal to this sort of Western audience, Indians in Britain, in America, in Australia, because those areas, of course, are very big business for the Hindi film producers as well as India itself.
Your films deal with Indians living in Britain. Your fantastic films like Bend It Like Beckham and Bride and Prejudice. Why do you think they were so successful over here? What was it about those films that made them stand out?
Well, what I try and do is bridge that gap, you know, between my community in England and the kind of white community, if you like. And my films are all about exploring our identity as British Asians. And I think Bend It Like Beckham and Bride and Prejudice, you know, to me, they're very British films. They just have people in that are also British, but you don't normally see in the cinema. But with Bride and Prejudice, what I wanted to do was make a Bollywood film, but make it accessible to a Western audience. And so by taking Jane Austen's fantastic Pride and Prejudice, it was a story that most people were familiar with, so they could relax because they knew where the story was going, and then sit back and enjoy all the kind of Bollywood elements, you know, all the singing and the dancing.
Well, we love them. Gurinder Chadha, many thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you.